Alright, so we're having all kinds of different retro game systems, but isn't it one particular machine that can play everything? Yeah, there is one thing that can play a lot, so let's talk about that and let's go. Hey, it's awesome that you're tuning in. In today's video we are going to take a close look at the Retro Freak. This is a product I've picked up a couple of months ago from a fellow collector, and I was really curious what can we actually play with this device and what are we getting, because the Retro Freak is more like a semi-emulation device that can just play everything nowadays. And everything, I mean in particular when it comes to the 8-bit, 16-bit and the handheld, because there are still a lot of cartridge-based games that cannot be played. That also includes when it comes to, let's say, disc-based games, or PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn, Dreamcast and all the other stuff that will not run on the Retro Freak. But what can we play? We have the NES, Famicom, the Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, the Genesis, Mega Drive, the PAL system, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, then the GBA, the TurboGrafx 16 PC Engine and the PC Engine Super Graphics. Where I own most of the devices and of course the games itself, I just wanted to, let's say that I will mainly focus on just the PC Engine when it comes to these, let's say, U cards. I really love the system and the U cards absolutely ahead of its time. But okay, beside the point, also I'm curious how this will play on the device with this particular controller. We do have different configurations of package. And I mean with the package, I mean the Retro Free console. So having here the Retro Free console, the cartridge adapter, this is implemented in this package. We have the standard controller, that way HDMI, or at least normally it comes with an HDMI and the AC adapter. So the controller adapter is not in here. It's kind of a little bit of a bummer, because I wish I had the option to have original controllers that I can plug into the device. A USB cable seems not be implemented and the Retro Free console. So this thing had a lot of different slots where we can put in the games itself, but there were a lot of different games for different systems that I wanted to check out. But let's take a close look at the cartridge slots. I've been testing out a lot of these clone devices and it isn't hit or miss when it comes to the overall quality. So between them there's this piece of plastic, you see it's all kind of wiggly and that feels kind of cheap. So clicking in the Mega Drive cartridge, it feels kind of sturdy. You do have some wiggle room in here, but you can pull it out fairly easy. The best thing to do with these things is just doing a little bit of a wiggle to the left or the right. That makes it way easier to plug it out. So, but how about the Super NES? The Super NES, yeah, that's a different story. Everything fits in here, so, but there is a lot of, I say, wiggle room with this particular thing. So that is a bit of a downside. Then of course we're having the adapter, but that thing doesn't fit at all. Because the reason why, because we can plug in the Famicom games like this. So the downside to this situation is that we cannot test the NES games. Nope, because it doesn't fit at all. And that is the adapter that we didn't have. I had a completely brain fart thinking there was a different adapter. It doesn't matter, so we don't need this particular one. But what we're going to be doing is testing out the Famicom part. There's actually so much stuff you can test out. But the other thing I'm really curious is about all the other things. Yeah, because in here we can plug in the Game Boy games. That fits in perfectly, very nicely. And then having the PC Engine over here. So that's also a very cool thing. And let's check out a Game Boy Advance cartridge, because there's another thing that we can plug in. Yeah, you can just pull it out fairly easy. So I must say I'm quite satisfied with this. So having the Retro Freak on my desk and plugged in every single cartridge I can think, man, this is just looking kind of wicked, to be honest. This is an overkill of cartridges and looks like a huge monster at this point of view. Nevertheless, let's take a close look at this device. What can we do? How is the overall emulation? Because there is so much that we can test out. Alright, so we do have the problem that we have an error. Yep, we have plugged in every single cartridge and he doesn't like that. So let's remove those and let's boot it up again. Okay, so let's take a close look at the menu itself. In here we're finding the internal and microSD option for just storing your game, seems to be. Systems, in the system option here having console region can be set to auto, US and Europe. Auto load state, and we're having auto start cartridge for on the insertion, automatically import saves on the first run. So we have a lot of different cool things that we can implement. Even have screenshots with file format JPEG, file system and the system information. It says here the Retro Freak application version 2.7 and hardware version 1.1. that's it. There's nothing much to see over here. So you can have like a lot of options, but I think what's even more cooler there, we have options like AV settings. And here you can see that we have aspect ratio option. We have even an image filter if you want to, with a very nice looking, let's say, preview. Here we can see what kind of different scales we can implement. And that is of course one of the positive things about emulation of your game. So we have so many cool things. So in here we're finding display overscan and all the craziness. We're going to be forcing it to 60 Hertz. Screen size can even be adjusted if I want to. And the force HDMI full range output signal can be turned on and off, and you can just see how of a big difference it is. Okay, audio wise, having sound enhancement can even bass boost it, treble boost. It's absolutely crazy what the thing can do. Especially audio, that will be interesting with some Street of Rage. But besides that, let's plug in a game and let's start off with some stuff. For example, when you're looking at the Sega Mega Drive. So what we're having over here is the Street Fighter 2. It's more like a bigger game, what I understand of. We're having the Virtua Racing, the special chip game. We're having new versions or new games like Xeno Crisis. Of course, the combination cartridges like Sonic Knuckles and Sonic 3. And then having the multi-game cards. Are they possible to be played? Because the configuration of the machine is more of an emulation situation. We're having EverDrives, and I'm guessing these will not be playable on these, let's say emulation / retro freak machines. And we're having homebrew games that you can actually buy from AliExpress. Yeah, when it comes to these things, they come with very cheap PCBs in the inside. So, oh boy, look at this quality. It's really bad. But besides that point, yeah, will they work on the, let's say, retro freak device? The first thing I'm just going to be testing is the combination cartridge. I'm just really curious how this thing will handle it. So let's plug this thing in. It will load up the cartridge, as you can see over there. It shows Sonic and Knuckles. So I am guessing, yeah, we cannot play the combination cartridge. Game settings, let's see, copying save to Retro Freak, write save to cartridge. So even that is possible with this crazy thing. So we're having cheats that we can implement it. The cheat code database file code MDXML was not found, so we can add them if you want to. And let's play it. So it's absolutely clear that we don't have the option for multi-cartridges. That is quite unfortunate, because this is absolutely one of my favorite games to play. Where the D-pad feels absolutely horrible, it seems to be working just fine. The overall emulation seems to be working great. No weird thing going on. All the sound effects are here. So I must say that I'm very pleased with it. Pressing the home button will give you even the option to make a quick load, quick save. So that's kind of cool. We can normally do and take a screenshot, but I'm guessing I need to have the microSD card implemented. Here we can even go to the option for scaling if you want to. So let's check out scan lines. And you can just see it looks so much more, let's say, sharper. So it's kind of cool. You can even between games, you can just mess around with this. I'm still messing up. I'm still getting used to the controls. Really used to the controls because I keep pressing the B button. Yep. It's very cool. It looks very nice. Yeah. But what happens if you're going to be plugging it out? So let's see. Let's remove the cartridges itself. And let's put in the next game, and that would be Virtua Racing, because that's one of those games that can be having problems with a device like this. Loading up the cartridge. Alright. It will take a little bit longer because this game is so much more bigger. And let's check out if it's going to be loading up. Virtua Racing, okay. But you can just see that it runs perfectly so far without any problems whatsoever. So that's kind of cool. The weird thing I do have over here, that I can start the game. Oh, there we go. It was like a controller issue. And with home we can go back and put it on original. There we go. And we can just start up the go. I must say I'm very surprised that it actually works, because the cartridge itself that we tried before didn't work at all. Going back to these games, I'm just going to be honest. I don't know if it's going to be nostalgia for people, but I cannot really enjoy this anymore. It looks so weird. Looks so strange. This is not going to be working, I know for sure, but I still wanted to see what happens if you're going to be plugging in a Sega 32X game. Okay, so one of the things is this thing runs on emulation, and normal emulators can have the option to actually play Sega 32X. But what happens if you're going to be plugging in my 32X? It seems to be loading up something. Okay, that's interesting. And this is a homebrew game, so expect that it doesn't know what it is. This cartridge not recognized RetroFreak. This can happen either due to poor connection between the RetroFreak and the cartridge running, resulting. Continue to run the game anyway. Yes, just do this, just to make fun out of it. Come on. Okay, there we go. And just gives a black screen. But that was of course something that we could expect. Okay. It doesn't freeze up because I can still use the menu itself. Next up, let's take a look at the Street Fighter 2 game. But of course this works without any problem. Even if the virtual racing was working, then of course the Street Fighter is going to be working as well. I'm still really curious about one thing. How will the D-pad of this thing work? Because it feels so flimsy. Alright, has it been configured like a 6-button configuration controller? Yep, it is. Okay, that is positive. Okay. Wow, I can do a move. And it seems to be working just really nicely. The next game I wanted to check out is Xenocrisis. It will give you the error messages like with the Sega 32X, and I'm guessing this has to do because it's a brand new game. Because this game is just made for the Mega Drive and Genesis, this will boot up without any problem whatsoever. Okay, so that's kind of cool. I don't know if it had been the 6-button configuration have been added to this, because now we can actually play this game so much better than normal. No, I need to configure it in the game itself. But no problem whatsoever here. Another unknown game, but that has to do because this thing is actually a multi-game card. We can boot up the games, or at least the game list. But you can see we're trying to start a game, it doesn't do anything. Because it loads up the first thing, and that is the main list. And from that point I need to be redirected to the game, but that doesn't work. So all multi-game cards are unplayable on these devices. And with an EverDrive it doesn't even recognize it. So EverDrives are off the table when it comes to these devices. Wouldn't even make any sense if you ask me, by the way. Alright, so when it comes to like the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom, we have all different solutions. Flash cards, I think they will not work at all. Then we're having the Japanese region that will work on this, or they say it is. Then having PAL games. Then we're having the special chip games. This is actually in PAL. This is a very strange card. It's a super retro games. You cannot buy it so far. I know you're getting these with these clone system where we can play 8-bit games. Not that that's going to be mattering because this thing does support 8-bit. But it's just fun to check it out what happens. And then we're having of course the US games. So this is actually the way that we can just try this machine. And let's go for it. So moving on to the Super NES. To give the same message, this is a Japanese version of the Turtles. Let's see if it's going to be even booting up. And somehow it doesn't really recognize it. Alright, that is weird. Let's try a different game. So I think the previous game had just an issue. Because that's the downside, actually playing some games through cartridges. If they're getting damaged, or if they're having like problems with the pins. And there we go. So that seems to be working fine. So when it comes to the Dragon Ball game. So that's absolutely awesome. Let's switch to some other ones like PAL. For example, one of my favorite games is the Super Mario Kart. And this is one of those games that doesn't run on every single device when it comes to, let's say, emulation or like say fake devices. But the RetroFreak has no issues whatsoever trying to boot this up. So absolutely awesome. Okay, so let's go into the save mode. Okay, before we're going to start the game, let's make save slot 1. Okay, there we go. Let's load it up. And there we go. So this seems to be working just fine. Alright, that's cool. And of course we're having filters. But the thing is, I don't have a brain for it. No, but with aspect ratio we need to basically go to the main menu for changing this out. Okay. Another special cartridge is the Japanese again. And yeah, this seems to be having issues again. Okay, so let's boot it up. It will give me the message that it does have problems, but so far Street Fighter 02, no. It seems to be that it doesn't boot up. Not at all. Alright, go back to the main menu. We can plug it in and out. Oh, okay. There we go, loading cartridge again. Sometimes it does have issues with reading them out. Okay, now it says Street Fighter 02. Okay. It loaded up and there we go. So we need to be sure that everything has been implemented correctly. Next up, I just want to quickly check out a US game, but this also seems to be working fine. No problem whatsoever. So with Famicom, I want to just keep it simple, having a Famicom game with this random, let's say, converter. And yeah, the original one was it with the system, so let's see if we can use it like this. And of course, having the Famicom games. So moving on to the Famicom part. So unfortunately, I don't have the adapter, so I cannot use the NES games, or I need to find another one on AliExpress. Yep, it's going to be having no idea what it is, because this is actually a Famicom homebrew game. And just for fun, just wanted to see what happens if we're going to be plugging it in. Yeah, but Famicom? There we're going to have some issues with this particular homebrew cartridge. That's a fact. But let's boot up another game, and it seems to be that it was just an issue of the Famicom game I had. Nevertheless, it seems to be working just fine. And I already mentioned before that I don't have the converter, so I cannot test the NES part. I find it such an annoying game. And the last but not least, of course, the PC Engine. That is what we're going to be trying out. And the unfortunate thing is that we don't have any N64 support. So that will not be tested and implemented on the system. But one of the things I was really intrigued by is the PC Engine part. And that's of course what we're going to be testing out now. It does recognize the game without any problem whatsoever. Oh man, this is really cool. Such a cool game. Alright, so let's see how it actually works with the controller and how everything has been configured. Because the configuration of the original controller is so much different compared with the Mega Drive and Super NES and other kind of devices. Okay, so it recognized the pad itself, but so far so good, and this is absolutely awesome. So we have all these Game Boy games, yeah, but we don't have the support for the Sega Game Gear. So it's kind of a little bit of a downside to the device itself, but doesn't spoil the fun, of course. So what we can do is actually play Game Boy Classic games. We have the Color games and the Game Boy Advance games. So 3 amazing systems that I have a lot of fun with. And let's see if we can use this old school multi-game card. And another thing, yep, we also have these, let's say, fake games. So, yep, we have one of those too. So see if this is going to be loading up. And then, of course, multi-game cartridges. But with emulation configuration, I think the chance that this will work is very slim. Well, let's move on to some Game Boy. Oh yeah, the 6 golden coins. Such a cool game. Of course, we do have colors. So let's take a close look into the menu. So what we can actually do on here, there are no extra options whatsoever. What we can use is the filter itself. Let's go for the high quality 2 times. And man, this looks so much better, man. Absolutely great. Okay, but there's one particular thing I just wanted to see, because there is the aspect ratio. Because now we're playing widescreen Mario on the Game Boy. That is not the way you want to play it. Let's see where we can actually find this. Game settings over here, and let's go to the hardware type. That's kind of cool, they can even switch between them. But that we can even use this as a GB or the Super Game Boy, I'm guessing. Autos will be color auto. Let's see, right. Okay, let's see what happens if I'm going to using the different configuration. No, there is no way we can just switch this out. So that is quite unfortunate. There's no aspect ratio. That is kind of an annoying thing. I wish they had like different options, especially when it comes to the widescreen shenanigans. They made so many freaking Lego games, but when it comes to this, it's kind of interesting to see that it is just working just fine, like the normal Game Boy games. We also implemented the filter, so everything looks so much more polished. So if you're going back to the no filter, oh boy. And last but not least, then having the Game Boy Advance. Loading time is so much significantly longer than the other ones, but it doesn't matter. We will wait. And let's see if we're going to be booting up. So far, I can see that it will automatically showcases also here GBA Wario Land 4. Yeah. Let's see what we can do when it comes to, let's say, all the other things. We have scan lines, we have the filter again. But I do wonder, so what happens if we're going back to the main menu? Do we have different options with the game settings? So yeah, we do have different options, or basically we're having less at this point. No aspect ratio. So with Wario Land, it's what you see, is what you're getting. But in the end, I think it's absolutely a very cool device that we can play all kinds of cool games with, including some Game Boy. So if you just want to experience these games on the bigger screen, it's a possibility with a filter slap on it, if you don't mind that. The Retro Freak is a very interesting piece of technology that gives you the option to play all kinds of retro games. But this is actually the way you want to play, that is something you decide. I already mentioned before, we have different, let's say, ways when it comes to FPGA emulation or just original hardware with, let's say, basic upscalers or more expensive upscalers. There are so many different ways to play, but this is just more a convenient thing. You can plug in all kinds of games. And so far I've tested, everything seems to be working just fine in most of the games. And I think it's absolutely great piece of technology. It would be cool to have like an update or with more possibilities. So far, out of the box, it seems to be working great in combination with the Retro Freak controller. I do love this controller so far, and yeah, especially when you're plugging in something else. How is it when the home button and all these things? This is very convenient and very pleasant to play with. Thank you all for watching. Consider subscribing, hit the little bell, and it would be great to see you in the next video.